in my heart and in my soul that any definition of a successful life at some point must include service to others. I will always be grateful for the wonderful opportunities that Colorado has afforded and continues to afford me. I have been blessed by this state, and I am grateful to every single one of you who has supported me through the years and in this campaign.
Now, tonight, the state GOP licking its wounds. They say that they will be reevaluating what went wrong. The question, of course, is, did Trump cost them this election? One concession speech after the next. Secretary of State Wayne Williams just conceded in the last hour. Also, it looks like the Democrats may flip the state Senate, which means that they will be in control of the governor and both chambers. Now, the one race that we're all waiting for here tonight is for Attorney General George Blockler. That race is within 1.5 percentage points. Blockler says it's too close to call. We are waiting to hear from him. He said he will be interviewing with us live here at 10 o'clock, so stay tuned for that. Reporting live from GOP headquarters, Jacqueline Allen, Denver 7.
All right, Jacqueline, and we want to get to some numbers for you. We mentioned this briefly before, but Jared Polis is not the only one making history tonight. The man taking his seat in the 2nd Congressional District, Joe Neguse, just became the first African American to represent Colorado in Congress. And he won by a landslide, 60 to 35% over Peter Hume. All right, let's take a look at some of the other top ballot issues we've been keeping a close watch on. Amendment 74 has failed. It would have required property owners to be compensated for property value losses due to state laws and regulations. This one went down in defeat, 54 to 46%.
And then to the oil and gas setback proposition on your ballot, 112. Well, you have spoken, and no, clearly it goes down by a big margin. That was a big money issue there, and the oil and gas industry considers that a victory tonight. Let's get out to Denver 7's Ryan Luby.
And Ryan's been with the group fighting Prop 112. This is a big win for them, Ryan.
This is an enormous victory for the oil and gas industry, to be sure. They were confident that 112 would fail and say, obviously, that the numbers show it. This is despite polls, once again, clearly, at least on this issue, being wrong, saying for the last several weeks that this would be something more like a 50-50 split. We may be here till midnight. That clearly was not the case. The industry spent, as you know, tens of millions of dollars to defeat 112, arguing that it would kill thousands of jobs on future oil and gas development. Colorado voters clearly heard that, especially unaffiliated voters. Despite the sigh of relief here tonight, the industry absolutely understands it has to be better in connecting with those who supported 112 to prevent a 112 from surfacing again.
We understand how important it is that the two coalesce together. And make no mistake, while we're thrilled tonight that Colorado understood Proposition 112 for what it was a ban on energy development in our state. Make no mistake, this is the beginning.
Well, the industry wants to point out that this issue is clearly not very partisan, seeing as how a number of Democrats would have voted for this, given the numbers that we see. Undoubtedly a different mood than what we saw here tonight. Let's go ahead and send it over to our Jennifer Kovaleski, who's with the folks who've been backing 112 from the beginning. Jen?
Ryan, the mood obviously a lot more somber here, but the message pretty clear that they are not going away, they are not stopping, even though Proposition 112 is unlikely to pass at this point. I'm joined now with Ann Lee Foster, one of the organizers and founders of Colorado Rising, who's behind Prop 112. Obviously, this is not the outcome you guys were hoping for. What kind of impact do you think it still had, and what's next?
Yeah, we're watching the votes come in, and we're seeing that over 700,000 Coloradans have voted against a $50+ million propaganda and opposition campaign by the oil and gas industry. We have spent only $1 million on our side. This was an entirely grassroots effort led by mothers and nurses and teachers from across the state. It has shown that despite being outspent, we still put up a hell of a fight. We are a force to be reckoned with. We will continue to fight for our communities, and we will continue to stand up against dangerous fracking coming closer to our neighborhoods and our homes.
I heard when you guys were holding your press conference here, you said over and over again, we're not done, we're not going away until the industry's not in our backyard. What does that mean, and could we see a similar measure on the ballot 2 years from now?
This this is really a community effort. So we're going to come together, we're going to regroup, we're going to strategize, we're going to recuperate, and then we're going to come forth with the best option going into the future. We're going to work with our legislatures, but one thing is for sure, we are not going away. This is a real threat from a belligerent and dangerous industry that has shown that they will make absolutely no concessions despite protest and opposition from the communities that they're trying to extract in, and therefore we will continue to stand up and we're not backing down.
And we heard from my colleague Ryan that the industry is aware that they may need to compromise, that clearly you sent a message. If the industry is willing to compromise, are you guys willing to compromise?
Absolutely. We've been trying to work with the industry for over 7 years and have been stonewalled at every turn, which is why we took to the ballot, and that's why we have taken on this enormous task to try and create our own protections. But like I said, the industry has at every turn been completely uncooperative, but we're more than willing to work with them. It shouldn't take a $50 million opposition campaign against $1 million for corporations to know that they need to cooperate and listen to these communities. But if that's what it took, we're happy to now have the seat at the table.
Thank you, Anley. I appreciate your time. Clearly, people still here, still enjoying themselves despite Proposition 112 passing. The message loud and clear that they are not going away, they are not stopping, and this is not the end of their fight. For now, we're live in Denver. I'm Jennifer Kowaleski for Denver 7.
Jennifer, thank you for all your reporting on that throughout the year. More results now. Democratic Congresswoman Diana DeGette holds on easily to her seat in Colorado's 1st Congressional District, easily defeating Republican Charles Stockham.
Also, incumbent Republican Scott Tipton, he is keeping his seat, representing West and Southern Colorado in the 4th Congressional District, fending off a run from Democrat Diane Mitch Bush. And, of course, all eyes tonight on that 6th Congressional District race. This one was a tight race. Jason Crow winning that seat, beating out longtime incumbent Mike Kaufman.
Let's go out to Denver 7's Jace Larson. The crowd found out, Jace, from watching our programming, and we heard them erupt. So I assume it's been a fun night where you are.
Yeah, this is the result that people wanted here, and it didn't take long to call this race. It was called before 8 o'clock or so. This race obviously being one of those contributing to the U.S. House going to the Democrats. When Crow got up to talk to his supporters, they were very happy, as you can imagine, and he spoke about what he said is a need to protect Colorado from some of the things that the Republicans want to do. And then as he stepped off stage and talked to me, he echoed that same thing.
You know, this administration has been trying to dismantle health care for the last 2 years. We need people in Congress that are going to stop that effort and try to figure out how we can move forward and get more quality and affordable coverage for more Americans.
He also told us that he wanted to protect the Robert Mueller investigation. That's obviously the investigation that is looking into whether there was outside influence on the U.S. election during the last presidential election. He said he wanted to make sure that the facts come out from that and that investigation can continue without being inappropriately stopped. You can see there are still people here happy at the result of this event tonight here, happy to be a part of, as we've been mentioning, the U.S. House of Representatives now becoming controlled by the Democrats. Guys, back to you.
Jace Larson with the Crow campaign. Thank you very much. Then we have on the other side the incumbent Mike Kaufman, who lost tonight. So
let's send it out to Denver 7's Jason Grenauer. He is with the Kaufman campaign tonight. And Jason, he was certainly gracious in his concession speech.
He was. The incumbent Republican Mike Kaufman really knew from the start he was in for a battle, he was in for a fight, but he was also basically behind the 8 ball really right from the start. Behind in spending, behind in the polls, yet he had done it before. He had come from behind in the polls and won in this district that does have a Democratic majority. But tonight was simply not his night. He could not pull that out one more time. The race was actually called fairly early in the night for the Democratic challenger Jason Crow. Kaufman took the stage to concede right after Walker Stapleton did. He basically came out and blamed redistricting right at the beginning of that concession speech. And the way, he says, the 6th Congressional was reshaped years ago for this loss when it added more diversity and many more predominantly Democratic immigrants to the voter rolls in that district. That includes Centennial, Littleton, Aurora, and then all the way up to parts of Brighton. The now former Congressman Mike Kaufman also placed some of the blame on the reaction of the nation to President Trump.
in this congressional district, in this race, it was a referendum on the president. In the end, the waves were too big for this ship of ours to stay afloat. We've shocked the political world in the last 3 elections, but tonight it wasn't to be.
Mr. Kaufman, what's next? No, sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, please. The now former congressman, as you saw there, did not take any questions after he left the stage. Instead, he hugged some supporters and then he left the building. Now, we don't know what the future will hold for Mike Kaufman because he didn't talk to us before this race and then he didn't talk to us after, but I did speak to one of his now former colleagues in Congress, Ken Buck, who says that he does not believe that we've seen the last of Mike Kaufman. Obviously, a somber scene here at the GOP headquarters, the GOP watch party, which quickly turned after those big 2 defeats here, but we do have some news, positive for the Republicans on that front. Scott Tipton wins, Ken Buck wins, and Doug Lamborn also win to hold their seats in Congress. Reporting live, I'm Jason Grenau, Denver 7.
All right, Jason, almost all alone in that ballroom.
Somebody was having a little bit of fun back there.
There he is. All right, thank you very much, sir, Jason.
All right, we want to get back to the Democratic headquarters where you can see Jason Crow has taken the podium once again. Let's listen in.
We have taken these oaths before, and we are ready to bring the values they uphold to Congress. We ended an era that let Donald Trump shape how we talk and how we think about our politics and each other. And we begin a new era that puts people first and recognizes our shared destiny. It will spare no tolerance for those who perpetuate or enable racism, hatred, or violence. It's time to toss political games aside. It's time to practice politics with honor, dignity, and humility, and build a government that fights for those who need a fighter. Most of all, it's time to get to work. I'm Jason Crow, and I'm proud to be the next congressman for Colorado's 6th District. Good night. Thank you.
Jason Crow, along with his wife, and a big night, as you can imagine, a first-time candidate, lawyer, former Navy SEAL, defeating longtime incumbent Mike Kaufman in the 6th tonight.
Taking a second victory lap, I suspect.
Right,
They're at Democratic headquarters having a good time this evening after a big win. So we are just getting started here on this special extended edition of Denver 7 at 10.
We're talking about the blue wave, but did the blue wave crash ashore in Colorado? And what does this mean looking ahead to 2020?
And as we head to break, a look at the results from our transportation measures on the ballot. Coloradans apparently not in a giving mood to fund transportation. Prop 109 would have directed the legislature to put $2 billion towards our roads, and you can see a resounding no to that one.
Still waiting on Prop 110 to be called. That one would generate $18 billion for roads, but would hike the sales tax by 6.2%.
So we talked with former state Senator Morgan Carroll and current chair of the Democratic Party about what this means for Colorado.
10. Oh, no. Not yet.
Stand by.
And let's give you a look at some of our other election results tonight. Amendment 73 has failed. It outlined raising taxes for those earning more than $150,000 a year, putting that tax money towards schools. Would have raised more than $1.6 billion, but that went down to defeat tonight.
And how about this? In 2018, slavery is going to be taken out of the Colorado Constitution. State voters overwhelmingly said yes. We can get rid of slavery in our Constitution.
2 tries, but it worked.
Yeah.
Across the nation, the Democrats are poised to take control of the House of Representatives.
So Republicans likely, it looks like, will retain control of the U.S. Senate. Now, investors are bracing for the midterm shakeup on Wall Street in the morning. Historically, listen up, if the House switches majority parties in the midterms, stocks do worse. But at the moment right now, Dow futures are trading higher and we'll be on top of it. Opening bell, 7:30 tomorrow morning.
And as we've told you, Democrats win big here in Colorado. So what does this mean for our state as we look ahead to 2020?
Denver 7's Liz Gilardi continues our team coverage tonight. Liz?
And Shannon, Colorado Democrats are claiming what they call the trifecta tonight. Jared Polis will be the state's next governor, and Dems will have control of the House and the Senate. So this is a big win for them, and that's why this room is so energized tonight. Another key win includes the Secretary of State's office. That position was previously held by a Republican as well. And although these are significant wins, the chair of the Democratic Party says she doesn't want to take any of that for granted tonight. But you know, a lot of people in this room are watching to see if this is part of a blue wave in Colorado and maybe in other parts of the nation. Colorado has long been seen as a purple state, as a swing state, but we talked with the chair of the Democratic Party and former state senator Morgan Carroll to ask her what she thinks this could mean.
We just took the House, the Senate, and the governorship, so we got a trifecta at the state level. We just picked up the 6th Congressional District for the first time, part of making a majority for Democrats in the United States House of Representatives, and every single one of our statewide down-ticket people, Attorney General, Secretary of State, CU Regent, State Treasurer, are all up on results tonight.
And you know, it's going to be interesting to see the breakdown in many of these races because we know there was a large turnout from unaffiliated voters as well. Reporting live tonight, Liz Gilardi, Denver 7.
All right, let's bring in our analysts, House Speaker Crisanta Duran and former state lawmaker Amy Stevens. So this blue wave, this could be tough for Republicans looking forward in the state legislature.
It'll be tough come next session, yes, for sure. I mean, the Senate, we lost 3 seats, which puts it at a 19-16. And the House already, Republicans had been down in the House. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. And I also think on the Senate side, once again, we talked about how one plays their hand. Will they overplay their hand in the 2019 session? I think we should thank Cory Gardner too. Cory picked up 4 seats tonight in the U.S. Senate. So the Republicans will retain the Senate, and Democrats will take the House nationally tonight.
All right, Speaker, you will not be Speaker, but what's that going to? What changes, if anything, to have Democrats in the governor's mansion, Senate, and House?
Oh, I think it makes a very big difference in terms of where the state goes. Many of these candidates ran on a bold agenda, wanting to advance equal pay for equal work for women and communities of color. They had an agenda of advocating for paid family leave, addressing climate change, trying to make sure that we have an economy that works for everyone and not just those at the top. We know with all the growth that we have seen in Colorado that affordability issues are having a major impact on so many Colorado families.
So you think this next legislative session then can get that done given this blue wave?
Well, I think Democrats should celebrate tonight and tomorrow get to work with an organized agenda and an effort as we go into this upcoming legislative session. It is going to be very, very important that people are working together to prioritize the top issues. And I think the other thing that came out of tonight was that if you are a Republican in Washington, D.C., and you are not bringing Colorado values to the Capitol, and you do not stand up to Trump, the people of Colorado will speak.
They seem to
and
have
they
spoken.
spoke loud tonight.
Santa, Amy, stay put. We'll see you all in just a little bit. Our coverage continues the midterms right after this short break. Have said no to 21-year-olds being allowed to run for state house or senate. Right now, the age is 25, and it's going to stay that way. We voted down Amendment V.
Meanwhile, Amendment W would change the language on local and state ballots for state Supreme Court or appeals judges. This race has not been called yet, although it looks like the yeses are in favor, 53 to 47% right now. Now, the Secretary of State's office is estimating voter turnout for this midterm. There was a whole lot of interest, and they're estimating this would be the highest turnout in recent Colorado history, possibly the highest ever for a midterm.
Denver 7's Russell Haythorne crunching those numbers tonight. Boy, what a big turnout tonight, Russell.
Yeah, that's right, Shannon. And as you can see, they are still counting the ballots down here at Denver Elections Division headquarters in downtown. I just got off the phone with the Secretary of State's office, and the projection is that 2.3 million Coloradans will have voted by the time all the ballots are counted. Let's break those numbers down even further. As of 6 o'clock this evening, 732,000 Democrats had cast their ballots. 725,000 Republicans voted in Colorado. Colorado, and a huge number of unaffiliated voters, more than 728,000 independents, had cast their ballots. That may be the story here. In fact, the Secretary of State believes the number of unaffiliated voters who voted this election will surpass Democrats and Republicans when all the votes are counted. That will be a first in Colorado history. How does this compare to midterm elections of years past? In 2010, 51.7% of eligible voters cast their ballots. In 2014, 53.7% cast their ballots, which was a record at the time. And this year, a projected 55% of eligible voters will have cast their ballots when it's all said and done. As for women and young voters, not quite the turnout in Colorado many had projected. The percentage of eligible women voters who cast their ballots was actually down a half a percentage point from 2014, and the percentage of young voters under 25 who cast their ballots this year was virtually identical to 2014. That's the latest from downtown. I'm Russell Haythorne. Back to you guys.
All right, Russell, thank you. Here's an interesting thing. She was a champion of the women's suffrage movement, and today, after casting their ballots, voters placed "I voted" stickers on Susan B. Anthony's gravestone in upstate New York. 146 years ago today, she was charged and fined for voting in the presidential election on November 5th, 1872. And it took nearly a half a century for the efforts of the suffragette movement to finally lead to the passage of the 19th Amendment, giving women the right to vote.
What a lovely scene there.
Stay in history.
Well, we have a lot more ahead. In the next half hour, the special election edition of Denver 7 News at 10, including Governor Hickenlooper's reaction to the governor's race.
And before we head to break tonight, a look at the results for Amendment X, which we have learned has passed. It determines how we define hemp in our Constitution and whether that definition would remain if federal law changes. So that's a yes on Amendment X.
Jared Polis, the next governor of Colorado.
Tonight we celebrate, and tomorrow we roll up our sleeves and get ready to work.
But I am so happy for Jared Polis, and because of Jared Polis, I am so happy for Colorado.
We did it! Tonight you sent a message that democracy is alive and well in America, and that you will not be silenced.
Colorado making history and big changes tonight. The big winners from this midterm election. You saw them. Polls have been closed now for, what, 3.5 hours?
Something like that. Still, there are races that have not been called, and it may be hours until we get the final numbers. But we have a team of reporters covering all the issues that matter to you and our state. First, to get you caught up on some of the biggest races. Of course, as you saw there, we know Jared Polis, the Democrat, is our new governor right there. 51 to 45% over Republican Walker Stapleton.
And Jason Crow wins the 6th congressional district seat, beating out incumbent Mike Kaufman. That race, 53 to 44%.
Big win for the oil and gas industry here in Colorado. Voters overwhelmingly shut down Prop 112 tonight as well.
And we just wanted to show you the AG race. That one is still too close to call, so we will get back to those numbers in a moment. But first, let's get to Ryan Luby, who is picking up our team coverage on Prop 112. Ryan?
Yeah, there was a sense of victory here tonight. You can see that the party, though, has pretty much entirely ended here at the Hyatt Regency in downtown Denver. The folks who were, against 112 are obviously a lot of folks who work in the industry. They were confident that that 112 would be defeated, despite polls showing again and again in the last several weeks that it was going to be a 50-50 split. Clearly, those polls were entirely wrong. Again, a jovial atmosphere here at the Hyatt Regency downtown. A lot of the folks in this room were involved in the discussions that spent, tens of millions of dollars to try to defeat 112. Clearly, that worked, and it was not really a partisan issue, to say the least, drawing in undoubtedly Democrats from across the aisle as well, despite there being a blue wave very clearly here in Colorado. All of this being said, industry folks realize that there is still a lot of momentum behind 112 and the people who were involved with that, and they recognize that, and they want to continue those conversations.
We've been having those conversations for the past several years. We need to recommit to doing that and doubling down on many of those efforts and making sure that we are going out and talking with Coloradans about what we're doing, why we're doing it, how and why it's safe, and why it's important to our state.
Huge victory, though, nonetheless, for the industry tonight, and a sizable split far beyond what the polls had called for, once again, reaching across the aisle, making this a nonpartisan issue. But certainly, as we know, the fight will continue going forward, and they're ready for it. For now, we're live here at downtown Denver at the Hyatt Regency. I'm Ryan Luby.
All right, long night for you. Thanks for all your work out there tonight, Ryan. And adding to an additional bit of news for the governor's race tonight, Colorado just elected its first openly gay governor.
That's right, and our Tony Kowaleski is at Democratic headquarters tonight, where the celebration still going strong, Tony.
It is going strong, winding down a bit, Ann and Shannon, but, the race we're watching and waiting on closely is that Attorney General race. I've been texting in the last 15 minutes with both candidates, and obviously with the lead that Weiser has right now, his team hoping that the outstanding votes are from places like Denver and from Boulder, also from in text messages with George Brockler, his team hoping tonight that there's a large uncounted ballot vote from El Paso County, a strongly Republican county, as we all know. So right now it looks like we may go throughout the night before it is final. It's going to be tough for Brockler to come back. We know that the Weiser team is upstairs. They may join us before this half-hour newscast wraps up, but the numbers clearly in Weiser's favor right now, about a 30,000 vote difference. It's going to take a big push by Republicans and Brockler's side to change that, but it is right now still too close to call, although heavily leaning towards the Democratic candidate. And yeah, talking about the governor's race, you could feel the energy in here tonight. This place was packed wall to wall. People came to celebrate, and they were able to celebrate when we saw the new governor, Jared Polis, take the podium, thank people, talk about crossing the aisle, which was a significant message, and also thank the people of the state for, as you mentioned, electing the state's first openly gay and the country's first openly gay governor. A significant message here tonight from Democratic headquarters. Reporting live, I'm Tony Kowaleski. And Shannon?
All right, Tony, thank you so much for those updates. All right, so we know that results are still coming in, some issues still not decided. Where do Colorado voters stand on fixing our state roads? We're live with the latest on Props 109 and 110.
Let's also check results now on the Y and Z. Those were the gerrymandering redistricting amendments. Both of those passed. Y was for the congressional, and Z would take care of the state districts.
More midterm results for you. Prop 111 has passed and will cap rates on payday loans.
Also, Colorado has spoken clearly on those two transportation measures on your ballot. Propositions 109 and 110 both have failed. 109 would have put about $2 billion toward our roads.
Prop 110 would have generated $18 billion for roads, calling for a hike in the sales tax. But clearly, voters said no thank you to that.
Again. And tonight, there are so many questions about what CDOT's going to do next.
And Denver 7's Jace Larson's been on top of those ballot measures. He's joining us now with a quick breakdown. Jace?
Hey guys, certainly when you talk to the people who work for CDOT, that they were hoping that that larger Prop 110 measure would have passed so that they would have got more money that they could put towards the road system here. They have trouble right now trying to maintain the roads that we already have and then try to use just a little bit of money that's left over for any of these new projects. And there are a whole host of projects all across the state that would have benefited from 110 had it passed. It's not like it would have just been in the metro area. It would have been across across the state. I was speaking earlier tonight with the former gubernatorial candidate from Colorado here, Mike Johnston. He lost to Jared Polis in the primary, but he was talking about how he's concerned that without more money for transportation, our economy, and especially outside of the metro area, could suffer.
This is, I think, one of the biggest problems the state faces is my 10-minute commute to work is now a 30-minute commute 5 years later, and people are finding all over. They're sitting in traffic instead of getting to their kid's soccer game or going away for the weekend, and it's changing the state's economy. You have places on the Western Slope who say folks won't come to visit anymore because they can't sit in traffic any longer.
So what do you do next? That's the big question here. I'll be totally frank with you. As we're talking to people, they tell us they don't have the answers as to what our state is going to do, but some of the options. They could kick it to the state legislature and say, hey, you're going to have to find money for us. Finding it in the current budget is going to be a very difficult thing for lawmakers to be able to do. You could also raise the gasoline tax, which has not been raised in quite some time. Of course, now that cars are much more efficient than they used to be, that becomes more difficult because simply you're not paying for as many gallons of gas as we used to. And then don't forget how big hybrid and electric cars are becoming in our state. Of course, they're certainly not the majority, but they're growing in popularity. That also means that the gas tax is not going to generate what it used to. Guys, back to you.
I'm sure the legislature will be dying to take up this issue again. Thank you, Jace.
They all are. All right, stay with us. Our continues of this historic midterm election continues right after this.
And here's a quick look at our weather for tonight. We have some chilly air settling to Colorado. A few snow showers in the mountains tonight. Out in the eastern plains, a little bit of freezing drizzle and fog by early morning. Mostly clear over western Colorado. It's going to be a cool day tomorrow. Highs only in the 30s and 40s across most of Colorado. And on the extended forecast, chilly tomorrow, partly cloudy, a few flurries late. Some morning flurries on Thursday. Far eastern plains may see a couple of inches of snow Wednesday night and Thursday. Friday, sunny and 45. And looking ahead into the weekend, nice day on Saturday, sunny and milder. We get another little cold push coming in on Sunday, Veterans Day. Flurries and colder with a high of 38 degrees. 45 next Monday and 55 next Tuesday. We'll be right back with more election coverage.
All right, and we're back with our analysts, Crisanza Duran on my left, appropriately. She's the Democrat here, and Amy Stevens. Let's talk quickly about the two transportation issues, 109 and 110. Both went down, but as we talked about earlier, we've got Dems across the board at the state capitol. So will that grease the skids to get anything done?
Well, I think that when it comes to transportation and education, there's a lot more work to do. You know, there are many teachers in the state that are not paid what they are worth. And when we think about all the growth that we have had, we really need to start investing in our roads, not just to move cars, but to move people. And so I think there's going to have to be a bold platform that is put forth. I'm hoping it is not just Democrats, though, that are willing to step up to the plate to get something done and to really problem solve. I hope that both of these issues, that Republicans and Democrats will come together to really advance our state when it comes to these topics.
Kicking the ball down the road a little more.
Yeah, the other issues tonight, Y and Z, and that there was a lot of love around Y and Z on all sides of the aisle. What will this do looking forward?
Well, I think it's good. I mean, I know Madam Speaker was on the ad, was part of the ad promoting it. I agree with it too, and I am hoping that as now it moves forward for both of the maps that we draw, that it really will gain some good support, and actually I think hopefully will set the tone for the rest of the nation. I think it's very exciting. I think it's good.
Yeah, people are looking for fairness everywhere, right?
Well,
especially
I mean,
congressional.
I hate to say, I was a victim of that. I mean, I got drawn into. My district got entirely changed, and I was drawn in with another Republican at a last-minute switch. So, if anyone understands how it creates a havoc, I certainly do. But I think that it had great bipartisan support, and I look forward to seeing it move.
Some of those districts are just bonkers looking. Did you get to meet Schwarzenegger on that when he was here?
No,
He was
I
your
did
campaign
not. I did not.
All right, thank you both so much for the
Thank
insight.
you.
Thank you.
I appreciate all that you brought for us.
Oh, what a night it has been. And as results keep coming into the newsroom, we promise we'll keep you updated throughout the night.
Our morning team is already here working on bringing you the latest numbers. We will have complete coverage for you on air starting at 4:30 a.m. Of course, online all night long. We don't really sleep here. But as we leave you tonight, we're going to leave you with a look at some of the results, and we thank you for watching Denver 7, starting with the still undecided Attorney General's race.